morning, ladies and gentlemen. This train originating from New York's Grand Central Station is back in service. Next stop will be New Canaan, Connecticut. New Canaan, Connecticut, next stop.
The quintessential New England town with the acre, the churches, it's just very pretty.
Very, I'd say, family-oriented, kind of, everyone feels comfortable with their doors unlocked.
It's a very church-oriented community. The school system is excellent.
But it's a very close-knit community. I feel that we have the support of our friends and family.
It's the Beverly Hills of the East Coast. It's awesome. You know, every season is like right out of a catalog, you know, beautiful snowfalls.
Most of the people, I think, work in New York City.
We have a lot of presidents of international companies here. We have a lot of CEOs, chief financial officers.
It's one of the most affluent communities in the States and arguably in the United States.
The average house right now is $1.2 million.
We don't have much economic, and sadly I think we don't have much racial diversity.
It's not like people here don't like minorities, it's just that there aren't minorities.
It's a beautiful community, and you know, if I wasn't an officer here, sure, I'd love to live here if I can afford it.
You have a lot of people who have resources available to them, and by resources I mean money.
Money flows like water in New Canaan. It's really kind of ridiculous walking up Elm Street and window shopping. It's unlike any other place.
When money and getting it is not an issue, then kids are going to shrink, and I mean every weekend. You know, most parents know what happens. They don't really care.
Just wanting to be that cool, rich parent from New Canaan. The parents aren't away most of the time. There's a house party going on. The parents aren't away most of the time. 16-year-olds are downstairs drinking in their basement, and the parents most certainly are not away. Most of the time their kid is downstairs, you know, snorting a line or doing some drugs. It's become more of a fantasy town. I mean, you won't find many places, I don't think, like this.
I think that some people in this community forget about the rest of the world sometimes when they get here. It's not really the real world sometimes here.
A large explosion took place that rocked the building. Sounded like lightning struck outside this window. I mean, it was an enormous sound. A secretary ran around the corner of the building and said a bomb's gone off. And so that kind of validated the fact that something quite bad occurred and we need to get out of there.
When you can see these pictures, it's obviously something devastating has happened. And again, unconfirmed report that a plane has crashed into one of the towers there. We are efforting more information on this subject.
I found the first exit, and there was a line. I waited in the line for, you know, maybe 14, 15 seconds to queue in to the stairwell. You know, we just basically walked a step every other second. And so within, you know, a minute or so, you weren't but a floor below. So we were going very, very slowly. And there was a lot of you know, weeping and whatever in the stairwell. People were very scared. No alarms ever went off. On the, I guess the 92nd floor or something like that, there was another second announcement, and the guy said, basically, An accident has occurred in Trade Center 1. It's on fire and smoking, and the smoke you smell in the stairwell is coming into the ventilation duct of Building 2, and the smoke you smell is from that fire. Building 2 is not in any imminent danger. It is stable. The elevators are working, and you can go back to your floors. Some people got out of the stairwell and decided to go up back to their office or get out of the stairwell and wait on the side for the third announcement, which never took place. And around, about 60th floor, 62nd, 63rd, depends on who you talk to, the jet hit. And we just basically went from standing up in the stairwell to like right up on the wall, instantly. All of us went like smattered against the wall. And it filled up with fumes, and the building basically swayed to the right and to the left, 15 seconds to the right, 15 seconds to the left, tumbling us from one wall to another wall, to the floor, to the staircase.
I was just watching the news, and all of a sudden this like special thing came on, and we actually watched the other plane hit.
There's a second plane flying in. Oh my God, it's going to hit the tower.
And we just kind of stared at it, and we didn't say much to each other. We just stared in disbelief.
People started to fill in, and it got very crowded. It smelled like jet fuel. It was extraordinarily hot, extremely hot. Wherever the plane hit and wherever the fuel dumped, people a couple of floors above us were having a different problem. And as we got farther down the staircase, you heard less from the people above you, and there were less people behind you.
What can you make of what we have seen, and particularly with this replay we just saw moments ago?
That's absolutely inexplicable. There shouldn't be any aircraft in that area, much less something heading what looked like deliberately for the World Trade Center tower.
Going from 99 to 2, I didn't see anybody else who needed help. And there are tons of people who needed help, especially after the jet hit. And so all I can say is everybody was helping everybody in front of me. And I was lucky enough to have one person to help. But on the plaza too, you see it's a gigantic 4-story window that overlooks the porch, or the plaza level where all the trade centers are, Trade Center 1 through 6 or 5. And that's where the bodies were, the jets were. People were falling out of the building next to the glass, and it was purely, it was hard to look at that.
FBI in Washington is investigating reports that these two plane crashes are the result of foul play. There is a report here by the Associated Press of a possible plane hijacking.
They took us out through the subway, and there was basically a human line of policemen who stood stoically just standing there, almost at attention, looking at you saying, "Good job, you're doing a great job, keep it going, you guys are great, good job, good job." I mean, it was like unbelievable. And we didn't know what was going on in the stairwell, of what was going on with our building. We just felt and smelled what was going on. This was the first opportunity where I actually went and looked at both trade centers. And I remember seeing the Trade Center 1, looking up and seeing a perfect silhouette of a jet aircraft. Jumbo jet aircraft. I mean, you could see where the wings went in, the tail went in, the engines, and it was just completely dark and smoking. Everything else was in flames. It was the eeriest sight you've ever seen. And then I looked at my building, and basically that was on fire from, 70th floor up. It was just one gigantic Roman candle. And, then I kind of thought about where I'd just been and realized how lucky I was. I turned the corner on Broadway and I could hear a sound. So I just ran and actually went in the middle of Broadway with cops and cars and FBI with guns drawn and cars going the wrong way. I mean, it was just absolutely complete chaos. And we were outrunning the plume of powder and steel. There were bolts from the building screaming through the air. As the building came down, these bolts were flying and hitting the windows above us on Broadway. And it sounded like, you know, whistling a missile or whatever, you know, and then it'd hit a window and explode the window. So you had to run in the middle of the road so you didn't get showered with the glass that was coming from the 10th floor of some of these buildings.
Being the hour that it was, the potential for so many members of the New Canaan community to be involved was very, very high. There was a deep, deep need to assist our brothers and sisters in New York.
I really felt the feeling of camaraderie and of brotherhood that I don't think you can explain to anybody if they don't wear a uniform.
Once you crossed that line and you saw the rubble, your heart became so heavy and you just cried.
It was like a MASH unit with 50 trauma tables set up with IV fluids and surgeons and trauma nurses. And it was very obvious right from the beginning that there were no patients. And it was very, very, very disturbing.
We really couldn't do anything. And then there were people walking up to us saying, listen, my father was on the 103rd story. Could you tell me where we might find his name? And, you know, all you can say to him is, I'm so sorry. I don't know what to do. I can't help you. But I could try.
That day that we came home, they had a memorial service, and it was all the churches in town.
And that was attended by, I think, 1,000 to 2,000 people.
And it was the most special service I've ever been to, ever. And there were obviously people who were still waiting to hear about whether their husbands or their wives had made it.
You know, we've really realized what we have, and to cherish what we have is, you know, I guess we had the 5 of us, and now it's in the house 4.
The shock is just like a ripple through the community. Everybody knows somebody who has lost somebody.
We've had incredible support. I think we've had probably 2,000 to 3,000 people come through our house in about a week's time.
You can't really take for granted what you have, and that's probably something I've learned from this that's impacted me the most.
The friendships that exist in this town are very, very strong, extremely strong. And I think after 9/11 they've become you know, even stronger and more important.
You know, people have reevaluated their lives entirely since this incident.
I think give a lot of people in New Canaan like a big deal of like what's out there, not just like the United States, but like in the world.
And I hope that's going to have a long-range effect on how much we need and how much we realize other people need. I hope.
I think we're closer and stronger with our friends, and maybe even farther apart with our enemies or people who don't necessarily like the American way of life.
Patriotism has been wonderful.
I find that very supportive.
American flags on cars, bumper stickers.
We feel good about being Americans.
I really hope that all that continues.
I think there are mega problems in the world that we have hoped we would not have to face.
Unfortunately, I believe that something like this was long overdue. It was long overdue for Americans to suffer something like this, that we've been too complacent with our airport security, that we've been too complacent with our borders, we've been just too complacent with everything because bad things happen in other countries. Just like New Canaan, in New Canaan we feel that bad things happen in the cities, you know, not here. And the same thing with the American psyche or the attitude is that that happens somewhere else.
One of the criticisms that rightfully have been levied at the United States is that sometimes our thinking is much too self-centered.
You know, I've actually been to Japan a couple of times, and you know, with their subway issue and some of your issues with the IRA and others, you know, those have always been kind of international events, and I felt somewhat insulated from that, and for no good reason, and never could understand it, why we didn't have that here.
I was hoping that more people would say we need to promote more respect for other countries and more understanding of other countries, and look at things, try to look at things from other people's perspective rather than just our own. And I had hoped that people would look at life in a healthier way, and that hasn't happened to the degree. For some it has, but I think a lot of people are going on as if nothing has changed.
The day it happened, September 11th, like 6 at night, there was a group of kids and they were fighting and they started chasing each other. They were like fighting with it. I stopped them and said, what are you doing? Don't you realize what just happened in the world? And they're like, yeah, but it doesn't matter to us. I said, you have no idea how much this is going to change your life and impact you. And that kind of, to me, was like a summary of not everybody, because there were people who were directly impacted by this in this community. And I don't want to belittle that or take that away from them, but some people don't maybe see that whole picture.
I'd say after the first week and a half, 2 weeks, I mean, it really did go back to normal. It was kind of not forgotten, but kind of put in the back.
In fact, 2 days after September 11th, I was directing traffic, and a woman came up to me. She screamed at me. She said, "Don't you know how inconvenienced I am?" And I just stared at her. And she looked at me. Did you hear? She said, "Did you hear what I said?" And I said, "What world do you live in, ma'am? What world do you live in? You're inconvenienced?" I said, 5,000 people just died 2 days ago, and you're inconvenienced?
I mean, we're not going to just stop our lives because of it, because a couple buildings fell down, and yeah, a couple people died, God bless them, but there's not much we can do about it now except for keep going.
I've been a little bit disappointed that more Americans haven't thought about the reason why large numbers of people in the world dislike us so much and dislike our way of life.
Sometimes the American public has a short memory, and I hope that we don't forget.
I think my daughter and her generation will now understand that this can take place, and their behavior will be different than mine.